We are joined tonight, excuse me, by Mark Pride, K1RX. In addition to serving as the president of the Port City Amateur Radio Club in New Hampshire, Mark works closely with the IARU and the 10th World Radio Sport Team Championship, WRTC, which will be taking place in July in the United Kingdom. Sometimes this is likened to the Olympic Games of amateur radio. WRTC brings top-tier contesters together under equal operating conditions to showcase skill, strategy, and camaraderie. Mark has over 60 years of amateur radio experience, contesting for the past 45 years in HF and VHF events. Several awards for top scorer in his region, a past president of the Yankee Clipper Contest Club, past director of WRTC 2014 for towers and antennas, and he was a referee at the WRTC 2018 event in Germany for the Finnish team there. Please welcome Mark Pride, K1RX, to the Mahoning Valley Amateur Radio Association. Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And don't know what's involved here with a screen share, but I'm assuming this is operational.
Yep, you should just be able to share your screen.
Okay, let me get that started then. Hopefully this will work.
Hey Frank, Ralph, can you turn
Okay.
down just a little bit?
Do what?
More volume.
Turn the volume up?
Okay, you need volume from me or?
No, you're fine, Mark. We had to do it
Okay.
on our end. You're fine.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Oh, very good. Well, thank you for the introduction, and you did such a good job. I think my job is done here, so I wish everybody a happy evening, and we'll carry on. No, no, I won't get out of it that easily. A little background, a little further background. It's WRTC 2026 based in the UK is what I'll be talking about tonight. It's about a maybe 30-40 minute presentation. And I was asked at Dayton last May to help lead the effort for fundraising. I do have a bit of experience in this space, not in the fundraising part, more being a ham and participating in WRTC in 2014, where I was a director. I was basically strong-armed by a buddy of mine who was the co-organizer of the event in the Boston area. And I was asked to help out with towers and antenna and putting all the teams together and so on and so forth. I also happen to have worked at Times Microwave Systems just around that time. And I had a pretty good relationship with the general manager at Times, and they were kind enough to supply us 7 miles of coax for the event. Ooh. So that's just a little aside. So moving right along. So I got drafted to help with fundraising, and that's what I'm attempting to do here tonight. I am not a professional fundraiser of any sort. I'm just an enthusiastic supporter. So I'll give you a quick overview on WRTC, a little history, the format, the mission, some of the key achievements, and at the end here, I'll be looking for your assistance in any way possible, and I'll get to those details here in a bit. But a little history. This started back in 1990 in the Seattle, Washington area, and it started with a concept, I think it was K7SS, who came up with the idea of somehow, with all the variables associated with amateur radio, your station different than the next person's, you have a different antenna, different power, different radios, all these different variables. And then people are out there competing with each other in contests. It would be great to have an ability to test just your operating skill. Take away all the variables and just pure outright, who's the better operator, who can make the most contacts and do all the, generating the points in the best possible way. So they started this concept off in 1990. It wasn't entirely, equal footing for everybody, but it was the first stage. But as time went on, they got better and better. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go here. But it's been described as the Olympics of amateur radio contesting or radio sport. And it does occur every 4 years, just like the Olympics, as we all peer into our TV screens watching Winter Olympics in Italy. Same deal. It's all run on with volunteers, everything from the organizing committee to site setups, setting the rules. The host country sets the rules, but basically they are consistent from place to place. There's standardized equipment acquisition involved, transportation, logistics, and of course IT to tie everything together. But there's some, 500 volunteers are typically involved in this. Back in 2014, when I was involved as a director, we had about 3 years leading up to the event to organize and get teams together and all these things. And we had close to 500 people involved, everything from setting up the sites, building the antennas, putting the tents in, setting up generators, setting up tables, chairs. I mean, think field day, and it's in a massive format. And here I am 12 years later, still run into people in New England that say this really was a real once in a lifetime experience. And, if you're lucky enough to have this event in your country, you definitely want to take advantage of it, not maybe as a direct participant or a competitor, but just to be a part of it. The whole socializing aspect of it is incredible. So if it ever comes to your town, and there's some rumor that it might actually occur in the Midwest in 2030, reach out, help out wherever you can. So a little further history here on the countries that were involved and the medal winners. 2022 was supposed to be the Italian event. They actually postponed it to 23 because of the pandemic, which put a little pressure on the UK to do it in 2026 because they actually had not 3.5 years to prepare, but 2 years. So in Italy, Ukraine won the gold and Germany got silver, bronze to Croatia. In 2018, when I was a referee, and there were about 50 teams competing. I happen to have a group that I was overseeing the Finnish team that was competing. But Lithuania won the gold, etc. Back in 2014 in Boston, gold went to the U.S., Slovakia the silver, bronze Germany. And in Russia, it's almost just like the real deal in the Olympics, whatever the host country is, they tend to end up with most of the gold medals. And true to form, in 2010, when Russia was hosting it, they got the gold for that. So the basic format of this thing is everybody's kind of on equal footing here as best possible. It's designed to bring in the best or highest achieving radio operators that are contesters, compete on a level playing field. Everybody in the same geographic region using identical antennas, the same output power. They're all limited to 100 watts, and they're subject, of course, to the same radio propagation. So if we've nailed all of that, then we pretty much have taken away all the variables that we run into, each station, one against each other in a normal operating environment. And this thing is also run like a field day. I mean, literally, you're off the grid. Everybody's on generators, 2 kilowatt Honda generators they've run. And every antenna, every tower structure, everything is identical. The only variable is the equipment that the competitors bring to the event. You might ask about the selection process. It's normally about 3 years. They look back at about 15 recognized contests. And if you've operated any of those contests, your call will probably appear in the public records for that. And they look through those records to determine who is the top scorer in the different regions. Now, each host country will define what are the regions around the world. And in the U.S., there's 10 call areas, and we actually are lucky enough to have 10 competing teams. And then we got a few extra teams thrown in there for other purposes. But they divide up Europe into about 10 or so different areas, Asia Pacific, South America, Africa, And the goal is to get somewhere over 40 countries represented, and they're pretty good in doing that. But in the selection process, if you've made a contact or if you participated in any contest that's been recognized here, you will be on that list. And just for fun, a friend of mine in the 2026 selection process, he checked the website, which is given here, and he found for operating like 2 or 3 contests, he was actually at about number 4,023. So he was nowhere close to being the top, competitor, but it was fun to at least see your call listed on that WRTC site. Another bit on the format, as I mentioned, rules and selections are set up by the host country. They define how the gold, silver, and bronze is established, and any other special awards they want to do. The participants, there's a team leader that is the top scorer in those 15 sanctioned contests over the last few years. They have the opportunity to pick a teammate. Now, that teammate can either be one that was competing right along with that person, or may not have operated at all. But, for various reasons, team leader gets to pick a teammate. And then there's a referee involved at every position. And there's an application process for that. They want you to be able to speak English. Ideally, if you know other languages, that's great. The whole competition is done in English. And there are strict rules about competitors talking to each other in their native tongue. They have to speak English when they're in front of the judge, or the referee, I should say. And then there are judges that are selected that do the logbook or log adjudication and the score finalization. So this event takes place in July. It's an overlay contest effectively over the IARU HF Championship contest, which I think this July it's the 11th and 12th, and it's both sideband and CW. You could think of it as the WRTC part of that is a contest within a contest. Only because there are some, they do different multipliers instead of the regular IARU contest. And they also have a category of 2 operator, 2 transmitter. So you've got a team leader and a teammate. They sit together with their own radio, and their logs are combined, and they share antennas. They run 100 watts. They bring their own equipment, and they operate 80 through 10 meters, both modes. And typically what's involved is the host country will arrange for some special call signs. Back in Germany, for those that are old enough here in this club to remember, back in the days of East Germany, they used to have special, or not special, but I guess regular amateur call signs which started with a prefix of Y, like Y6, Y5, and then they'd follow that with, letters in the suffix. That was kind of interesting. This is all, of course, before the Berlin Wall came down. But what was interesting in the German one is their equivalent FCC allowed this WRTC event to use Y call signs. And in fact, the team that I was refereeing, we got a call, and I'll show you this. Me as a referee, but the call that we got was Yankee 84 Papa during the competition. And everybody, no one knew their call signs until 15 minutes before the event started. The whole idea is to keep it secret, and you don't want any cheerleading. You don't want to know, who are the countries behind these different calls, because the possibility of, hey, it's Y84 Papa, that's the Finnish team. So, hey, all the guys in Finland, make sure you only work that guy, and then his score gets, slanted heavily in the wrong direction. So, trying to avoid things like that. So they've really done an outstanding job over the years in really making it an entirely clean, well organized, and properly ruled out operating. And I mentioned the 40 countries. It'll be about that this time around in the UK. The mission of this thing is to publicize radio sport worldwide, both inside and outside of amateur radio. There are spectators involved. There's news media, all kinds of different media that'll be involved. And we like to promote, our fun aspect of the hobby with those outside sources. And we like to move it around to different international locations to, create a broader experience for spectators and participants. And we want to promote technology. Their operating teams working together. The whole chemistry of how do you work cohesively and effectively together, just like you might do on field day or something, but in a much more tighter environment. Any kind of advanced signal management, handling, processing the signals around the table and being efficient in the way they're, delivered to antennas and, maximizing score. We want to get to a real-time data collection. We've got that pretty well organized now, and spectator viewing and education, and encourage growth in the hobby with youth and young adults. And, promoting that lifetime passion that, frankly, most of us here have, latched onto. We probably all started at a young age, and in a lot of cases, our career was kind of based on that experience with ham radio. At least it was for me. I've retired about 8 years ago, but I went through two careers, both based on good knowledge of RF and communications. And honestly, it was a direct result of all my time with ham radio. And the final point here is we're trying to expand the interest into underrepresented regions of the world. So some of the goals in 2026, again, this is based in the UK. They want to continue driving education, hands-on experience, optimizing station design and the efficiency, and get that real-time data collection. They've got specific objectives. They got 4 youth teams. I know in Italy they had 2, so they're increasing the youth coverage in this event. There are 50 teams, and so 4 out of those 50 will be people under the age of 25, and they come together from different parts of the world, and they went through some qualification to get there. Post-event for this thing, the UK organizing committee, they're working with like 10 different schools in the UK to supply them with the sight kits and all the equipment necessary to do radio sport on their own. And there are plans to educate them on all of that. They're planning to invite schools to the headquarters location for this event during that week, and they'll be giving them some education on what we're all about and what this whole competition's all about. And from a sustainability perspective, any funds that are raised, and again, it's all through donations, any excess funds that are collected are set aside for the next host country. We've been doing this now for the last probably five events. Just to cite an example, in 2014, and when it was held in Boston, I think we had a budget of $600,000 to do this. And we actually ended up at $650,000. So we were in a position to push that additional funding over to the next group to get them started off on the right foot. It worked out well, and that's sort of been the case. We've been very fortunate with a lot of support, a lot of donations to keep that going very nicely. So talked about how do you get everybody in the same location and same antennas and all of that. Through terrestrial studies and Google Maps and Topo Maps and all kinds of studies that we've done. And in the UK, they were quite blessed with the fact that they've got an area over in what they call East Anglia, which couldn't be flatter than a cornfield in Kansas, I think. It's incredible. And all farmland out there, and they've secured permission from a number of large estates to support this. And like they've indicated here's one spot. They've found 15,000 acres of farmland that they'll be using for the event. Now, what does the site look like? Now, what they discovered back in 2010 when it was held in Russia, they found that, and Russia had a very similar terrain, everything extremely flat. What they found was if we could maintain separation of at least 1,500 feet or about 500 meters, the interaction between the stations should be very minimal, or no interaction at all. So they kind of arrived at this as sort of a standard. So it turns out with the grid sites that they found already, they can comfortably put in the 50 locations. Now they're also planning 5 additional sites as spares. So there are going to be 5 sites that won't have anybody, but it's for backup, and that's for situations where, suddenly there's noise. There was a power line put in that, it wasn't there 2 years ago. Some kind of a complication with the site. They have the ability then to move them over to a new site. And, we're trying to plan on every contingency that, this world offers. So this picture represents kind of the typical layout of every site. There's a support team housed in a tent nearby. They take care of the food and drink and everything for the competitors. The tent in the middle shows the generator situation, covered, protected. And then the referee and the competitors, 2 competitors, they sit in the other tent, which is separate. And their radio equipment, everything is inside that. And then they're connected to that antenna, the tower. The antenna on the right, or the picture on the right, is actually an antenna or the setup that we used in 2014. We used 40 feet of Roan 25. We used a falling derrick system to raise and lower. It was a 4-way guying system using Mastrant rope, which we got from the Czech Republic. Excellent guying rope. It was 5mm stuff. And the antenna, we went through a competitive process, and we ended up looking at Force 12. Oh gosh, can't remember all of them. But we ended up going through a competitive bid process on the antenna, the tri-bander, and we picked Cycle 24 to produce the antenna. And we had 55 of those antennas, or I'm sorry, we had 65. In the 2014 event, we had 60 teams competing and 5 spares. And the average setup time was about 90 minutes. So if you imagine your typical field day arrangement and set up your antennas in an hour and a half, that's what we had this down to. I had teams under my watch. I had 16 teams, 5-person teams each. And I had a couple of teams that actually stood up 5 locations in a single day. Pretty amazing. In total, the goal was 65 sites stood up in 72 hours. And this was like the Wednesday, Thursday time period, or I should say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time period before the contest. Friday, the competitors would go out to these sites and start setting up their stations. And the contest would actually start on Saturday morning. So the other question of finding a location, what about the suitability of that site? Well, I go through several different things, and now with some of the technology we've got available, things like, HFTA modeling, we can kind of look at some of this terrain and get a very good idea of the expected performance. And the target areas would be Europe, South America, and to the west. Those are sort of the 3 key areas that they would do their analysis on. Point an antenna toward Europe over this particular terrain, what kind of results would you see? And this is the kind of typical data they would find. They'd also do some SDR plotting and looking at local noise in the area, and they'd survey the area for at least a 24-hour or more period, and they'd check to see all the bands were good. Since we all know noise and interference and issues like that can seriously hamper your operating. So the goal was to eliminate or have very quiet locations. And then the third point was we need to have some sort of cellular coverage out there because we're going to be sending some real-time data from the logs from the competitors to the headquarters location. So site testing, just to give you a little snapshot of that, back in July of 2025, during the exact same competition, the IARU contest, the Brits set up 5 stations in the area, and they pretty much confirmed everything was working right. They took the opportunity to train the trainers. This was the site setup, antenna installation, generator, all that. They did their data collection and produced enough information so they could generate some installation guides and got some skilled teams put in place. Signal reports, they'd use reverse beacon network technology to help verify that the sites were equal. You know, when you can get 50 sites that are within a dB or two of each other on all the different bands in all the key directions, I'd say you pretty much achieved your objective. And I don't know all of the data, but I'm quite certain this is what they've probably got close to. And then if we found, or we take these same logs that were generated, and I think there were about nearly 10,000 QSOs that were made with those 5 stations. They make them publicly available to the competitors so they can get an advanced look at what kind of normal conditions in July in the UK they might expect for this event, so they can start doing some planning. You know, it's like don't miss the opportunity to be on 40 meters, in the middle of the day, because in Europe there's so much activity during the day on 40 that here in the US, if you're a US competitor, you might think, no, I think I'd rather be on 20 or 15 working Europe. But you don't realize that there's a tremendous opportunity on bands that you may have, normally not even thought about. So that, and then they also, the objective of the testing was to throw out the guys that were either too loud or too weak. And we found that to be the case in the Boston one. When we did our analysis, we did the RBN studies and all of that. In fact, during ours, we had up to 30 stations testing all the different sites, or the 30 sites that we put out, but we put up 30 stations. And at strategic moments of the weekend, we'd say, point your antenna at Europe, call CQ for a minute or two, and then go back to what you were doing. And we had the reverse beacon network people, the guys behind all that stuff, set up with their software to only, to listen to those moments. So then we could then take that data and then analyze it afterwards and figure out, okay, which sites were bad, which ones were good. I remember operating from an apple orchard, and it was on a nice hilltop. And I looked at that place before I even turned on the radio. I looked at it, I said, this place is going to be too good. I mean, it's just beautiful, roll off in every direction. It was incredible. And sure enough, it was eliminated. So summary, as of February, of course, we've done all the testing. We've got teammates and leaders already picked. Referees are confirmed. The UK invitation to the schools are out, and the programs being developed there. We've got a couple of, we're going to have 2 headquarters stations set up. They're going to support the youth on the air teams that we're going to bring in also, along with spectators. And we've teamed up with a group called WRL, World Radio Lab. They're going to do the logging and collect the log information from the 50 stations, and then be able to post their scores at the headquarters, like on a big scoreboard, and that'll be put up on the internet as well. They're looking to do live streaming. We're even looking to have, almost like your Olympic moderators, where you interview a competitor, or you go out to a site and you kind of look over their shoulder and you see how they're competing, or you look at the scoreboard and you have some people that are able to, provide some analysis. That's all in the works. And that's kind of a nice step up from what we've done in the past. And on the website, we also have a new brochure that really describes everything from the event itself to some of the extracurricular things, for the YLs and the people that are not participating. There are programs available for them to kind of keep themselves entertained while their other half is off doing their competition. So it's a very, very well organized thing. And I mentioned WRL. These guys have partnered with them. They're going to collect data from the 50 stations. They're looking at the live commentary during the 24-hour period, live stats, etc. Trying to create that, esports kind of feel, from an entertainment perspective. And they'll be, and then WRL will also be able to interface with all of the different logging programs that will be in play. Everything from wind tests to N1MM to, probably a half a dozen logging programs that the competitors prefer to use. So WRL is tasked with making sure they can interface with all of them and collect the data or the logging information for the streaming. Here's just a picture of the summary where they made back in July. They had the 5 stations running. They made 9,800 QSOs. And in this display, they showed first, second, and third place, at that snapshot in time. This is sort of the early look of what the web page will have on it. But there's going to be a great deal more available. So I always get asked, well, we're over here in the U.S., what can we do to participate in this event? If it's happening the week of July 8th through the 14th, roughly, I call it audience participation. It's better than watching it on TV. And it really does have a bit of a worldwide audience to it. It, we think, creates a nice level of motivation unequaled anywhere. I can recall times when I was on vacation with my grandkids, and we were sitting at summertime, and we were watching the Summer Olympics and watching guys like Michael Phelps, collect gold medals hand over fist, and got the kids all motivated to go out there and do something on the beach the next day. So it kind of creates that level of motivation, I think, in a very simplistic way. But for a serious contester, it really is a lifetime achievement to reach one of these operating events. So what we can do here is we can, over the internet, watch the opening and closing ceremonies. You can obviously work the stations, and I know they're giving out awards for those of us outside the activity, that if you work all of the stations involved, you get a nice certificate or a nice award for that level of participation. And I mentioned the performance monitoring real time. That's all happening. So a lot of good things are going on that are planned for this July in the UK. So you truly can be a part of the action. And I mentioned dollars before. In the UK, if anyone's ever traveled to the UK, they probably recognize it's a bit on the expensive side, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And what the organizing committee found when it came to finding a headquarters hotel, you couldn't just use like what we did in 2014, like a Best Western hotel. I'm not knocking them, but that level of hotel where they could accommodate 500 people, and they had some room for conferences and large meeting rooms, etc. To find something equivalent to that in the UK, it's pretty difficult. So they've had to kind of step up their requirements, I guess, to find the right place. Well, they did find a place called Y Boston, WYBOSTON, and it's actually a resort. And to help defray some of the costs, the competitors and referees are actually paying a portion of the funds for their housing and their meals. In years past, the organizing committee, like what we did in Boston, was we paid for the accommodations and the meals for the competitors and the referees. They had to travel there on their own dime and bring their own, equipment if you're a competitor, and incur that cost. But we were able to actually accommodate, because the hotel was such that, it was a reasonable price scenario, that, we could avoid having them pay that charge. The UK, and I think in Italy as well, they ran into the problem of it's just, you just can't find the appropriate headquarters hotel without some above average cost. So the fix to that is have everybody pay a little bit. So that's working out. So their budget was £850 sterling, and to date we're about £50,000 short. We're looking at between now and July 8th is the closing date for all donations. We've recently gotten some good news on a front here where we've got a few people that have stepped up and provided some very nice donation for us. But the call to action is, I'm looking for individuals, clubs, and and related large groups to support our efforts in this, help close that gap. And leading up to the event, what they did was kind of nice. Back in 2024, if you donated $125 or about 100 pounds, you would get a nice bronze coin. And in 25, they offered a silver coin. And January 1st, they came out with a gold coin. The gold coin picture is, of course, shows both sides. That Union Jack and Tower is the same thing that's on the back of the bronze and the silver. So that's what's currently out there, and you can do that over the website, make that donation. I talked about tent sponsorships a moment ago, I think. If you're a club or a large group of individuals, or you want to do something special, maybe a memorial for maybe a silent key in your club or whatever, we've organized this tent sponsorship. So for those 50 tents that are out there, we're looking for support for that in the form of at least $1,500. And with that comes a nice sign that goes with the tent. And there's a coverage, of course, on their website that would show, who the group is and the sponsorship. This slide actually might be a little dated. I think we might actually only have one tent left out of the 50. But regardless, individuals, groups, we're all looking for donations. So enough on that one. And just before Christmas, call it a Christmas gift, I guess, we received an opportunity from a very highly contest supportive amateur to become an anonymous donor. And he said, if any donations between January 1st and date and Hamvention 2026, he'll match it up to $20,000. So we're finding ways to close the gap very nicely. But we're still, of course, on the reach out, reaching out for others to make sure. And even if we're over, that's all going to go toward the next event anyway. So it's never going to be lost. So that's a nice thing that's just recently happened. We've partnered also with an organization called Worldwide Radio Operators Foundation, or WWROF. If those of you not familiar with them, these are the folks that are actually funding and supporting things like the CQ Worldwide contest. CQ magazine went out of business, and this organization picked up that function, and they're supporting things like that. Well, they partnered with WRTC, and they're in a position to handle the larger donations, and then they also hold the money for the next WRTC group. So it's a really works out well for everybody. Very convenient. And they're a 501c3 organization, so you could claim a deduction. Donor advised funds can be applied, things like that. All kinds of great ways to contribute and get the proper credit. And I know this is being recorded, but if you're not in a position, but that might be helpful, but maybe take a picture of this. This is all the contact information on donors, on the donation process, the WWROF. If you want to organize or have a club reach out to me, I'd be happy to do a presentation similar to this, but it would be a little more updated, probably with new news coming in from WRTC and the organizers. So here's my contact info, and feel free to reach out. Or if you know another club that think they could help out, or they have an interest in contesting and the like, I'd love to hear from them. So that is the presentation. If you have any questions, happy to entertain them.
Floor is open for questions.
I have a question. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. Have you ever seen one of these?
I can't quite.
Can't quite make it out. It's from WRTC in 1996 when it was in San Francisco.
Oh, excellent.
Just the people in the mail, unsolicited. This says awarded to KBGAE in recognition of working 23 WRTC 96 team stations.
There you go.
They did
Excellent.
that to, keep promoting the event and stuff. So I thought it was kind of fun to get that in the mail.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think
Letter
I think they had like, if you meet like 10 or 20 stations minimum out of the 50 or 60 that might be on the air, you get a nice recognition like that. So that's excellent. Congratulations on that.
Back in the 90s, they was a lot of buzz about trying to make radio sport an actual Olympic event. And I don't know, do you know if anybody ever actually contacted the Olympic Committee or anything actually moved in that direction?
You mean the actual real Olympics?
Yes, yeah, there was a lot of talk about that.
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything this time around.
And my last question is, in Italy, they didn't come out with any kind of a spreadsheet or data on what radios the competitors brought. But they used to do that in previous WRTCs.
Yeah.
So you can see like maybe the top team used ICOM or Elecraft or whatever. Do you know if they're going to make that available in the one in Britain this year?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm on the group's IO for the organizing committee, and I will make a specific request. And that's was it KBA GAE? Is that the call?
Yep.
Okay, I'll chase you down in QRZ and I'll give you an update on that. Because I know that in 2014 we did a survey and there was a fair number of Elecrafts and ICOMs and Yaesus, and Yaesu is a corporate sponsor, as is ICOM. And we're trying to get Elecraft to join us. They keep promising, but things are a little rough right now. So at any rate, I will do that for you. I'll make a note of that and reach out to you when I get that info. That's okay.
Much appreciated, Mark.
Yeah, my pleasure. Make a note here.
Any other questions?
Yes, yes. Hey, Mark, W4ZIP here. A
Hello.
few years ago, I was at the Dayton Hamvention and I met a fellow by the name of J.K. George. Was a referee in 2014, and he wrote a book called Contact Sport.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I wanted to bring this to the attention of our group, that if anybody's got an interest in learning more about the contest and how it works, you can get this book at Amazon. It's called Contact Sport, written by J.K. George, and it really documents the whole process leading up to the contest. And then he goes into a lot of detail about the 24-hour period during the contest. So for us guys, it's a very interesting story. Contact Sport by J.K. George.
Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, there was also a YouTube video that came out for the 2014 event. It was done by James, 9 Victor 1 Yankee Charlie, 9V1YC. He was at the event and he did video, and he put together a 1-hour video interviewing people. I think I got my 20 seconds of fame when he came around to my spot, and that's out there still. I don't have the link offhand, but you could probably do a search on WRTC and videos and things like that. But that's another great thing out there. Yeah, you had another question?
Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, I got a couple questions. Some of the stuff I'm not quite with you yet. So let's start here. You mentioned that equipment is brought by the country team. So, am I getting this right? As far as a level playing field, it's the same antenna, same tower, same coax,
And power.
I'm sorry.
And power, 100 watts.
Yep. But then they're allowed to bring whatever they want in the way of equipment.
Yes, because whatever they're used to, whatever they're comfortable with, we think that's probably not a big enough difference, other than, like an antenna. If you had a 8-element Yagi versus a dipole, obviously you're going to have an advantage.
Sure.
But, when it comes to radio equipment, I mean, they've got to make it reasonable. So that's where they kind of drew the line.
All right. Then you also had a mention on one of the slides about advanced signal management technology. Can you tell me a little more about what that means?
Well, it's probably a glorious name for things like memory keyers and voice recordings and antenna switching. They use triplexers. They've got a single feed line or not a single feed line, a single Yagi tri-bander with a single feed line coming off it. You've got to divide those 3 bands between 2 stations. So there's a little bit of strategy and how do you build a station? And you want to do that in advance. You don't want to do that the day you show up and figure out, okay, where's this triplexer go and which bands or which station should get these 2 or 3 bands or 2 bands or 1 band. How do you split it up? And it's all driven by strategy and what bands you want to be on it, whatever. So I mean, you kind of leave it up to a little bit of out of the box thinking when it comes to how do you manage the signals around the table. So that's what I'm kind of generally referring to.
Okay. And then I think I may be up to speed on this one, but just in case, you mentioned the setup time for the towers and antennas and such was 90 minutes. So you have a group of teams uh, uh, dedicated to just setting up antennas that have nothing to do with the operating teams.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then go ahead.
there were actually 2 teams. One we called affectionately referred to as the beam team. Guys putting the beam and the tower together and the dipoles. There are 80 and 40 meter inverted V's hanging off that to cover your 80 through 10 meters. Our goal in those teams was to stand up, put together the antennas, put the tower together, raise them, get them set up, good to go. Average of 90 minutes because the goal was we're starting on Tuesday before the weekend, and we've got 65 locations to stand up. And if you divide that by, whatever on a good day, if it's not raining or whatever, got some challenges. But I had a couple of real superstar teams that, actually stood up five locations in a single day, and they were averaging 90 minutes a day. Now they would show up, the end of their job was they would hand over 3 coax lines and a rotator line to the team setting up the tent or the station. I guess we call them station teams. And these guys were responsible to put the tent together, hook up the generator. I think we used plywood floors. We're talking, sitting out in the grass, out in the field. So a decent little floor, set up a couple of chairs or 3 chairs, 2 for the operators and 1 for the referee. Enough space with tables so they can, enough room to set up their equipment and have all that good to go. Any kind of lighting, bug stuff, whatever, that team was responsible for. So we could kind of independently work our teams. We had all the sites known. We went out in advance. Occasionally a station team would overlap with a beam team, but the beam team would lead the charge because we have to set the antennas and the coax, they're only certain length, 150-foot lengths of coax, LMR 200, LMR 400. And we need to have it, an approximate location of where the tent will be. And then we cordon off that area with, yellow tape to keep everybody out of the area. And that's how that all works. So we had 2 teams running basically, and we started on a Tuesday. I know in the UK, I think they're starting actually the weekend before. They've gotten permission. Part of the challenge was you've only got limited time to use the property. You're borrowing, in some cases, maybe a private landowner. He's got, crops, things are happening on the property, and he can't be tying up his work, with our fun stuff, for weeks on end. So, we got to be respectful of that.
Sure.
So in the UK, I think they're starting the weekend before and to set up their 55 locations.
Okay.
I don't know. Does that answer your question? I hope so.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I got
Okay.
one more question, but then I want to make a note, Ralph. Before Mark finishes up, I need to see if Rich can talk to us a little bit about this donation thing. Any rate, give Rich a fair heads up too. My last question there, Mark, is you said something to the effect that the criteria for the medals is set up by the host country. Uh, so can you give me a little feel for what kind of criteria they come up with and how it differs between different countries?
Well, that may have been misrepresented. It's the top score, and the country can decide, you know what, we're going to have one for sideband, one for CW, one for mixed, and whatever. And by and large, usually it ends up being gold medal goes to the top combined mode competitor. It's not based on any particular country or anything like that. So it's just purely top score. One scores 1, 2, and 3. And then if there's a special category that they create, like, top sideband score, that's okay. They can do, it wouldn't be a gold medal, but it might be another award. So it's sort of a mixed bag in terms of awards. But the key thing is the top competitors in both modes, and generally they all operate both modes. There's maybe one or two that might decide, hey, I think we can win this thing if we only did CW only. Maybe 2 points per QSO instead of one, and however the rules are defined. I think that's the way it's done. So, the competitors can figure out, hey, which is the best category for us to compete in that might yield us a gold medal or some kind of a medal. But on average, it's usually both modes and, do that. And I think as history shows, it's like 60% of the score is CW, 40% is sideband, the top scores.
Okay. All right, so that's all my questions. Ralph, if you want to check for anybody with other questions, and then I want to come back to Rich.
I thought I saw a hand. Andy?
Yeah, you mentioned 80 and 40 meter dipoles. Are they the same antenna? Are they oriented the same direction? How do you maintain homogeneity with individual antennas?
Well,
from the same tower.
Yeah, they are usually put up 90 degrees to each other to minimize any kind of coupling. And then they're also configured by however the host country wants to define it, such that the 80-meter wires go northeast, southwest, and the 40 goes northwest, southeast. But they go to great pains to make sure there's no interaction. The only thing when it comes to 80 meters, just a quick note on that, the antennas are set up such that the competitors can leave the tent and go out to the edge of the antenna field where the ends of the 80-meter dipole reside, and they can either open or short a little add-on piece to make it a little better SWR on CW or phone. So if they decided, hey, we're just going to go phone on 80 meters, we'll just set it up for phone and not worry about it. But if they decide, in the middle of the night, they want to, they might get a better rate if they go to CW. Somebody gets tasked with going out with a flashlight, go find the ends of those wires, and they make the change. And that's the only thing they can do on that site.
Awesome.
That answers the question? Okay.
It does. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay.
Frank?
Hey, Mark, I've got actually a couple questions. Simple.
Sure.
You mentioned weather, and what kind of weather situations are they dealing with? Obviously, they're in a tent. It doesn't sound like they've got HVAC in the tents or anything like that. What kind of situations have developed over time? What provisions do they have to deal with? I think it's 24 hours or 48 hours.
24. Starts
24 hours worth of potential
12
exposure. Yeah, potential exposure to Mother Nature.
Yeah, well, it's like all of our other favorite field day events. It's 90 degrees out and you're sweltering in a tent. But they are equipping the tents with fans. There's no AC. So everybody will get to suffer identically. That's all part of it.
Other question, you mentioned refereeing a number of times, and you mentioned that everybody gets to bring their own gear. Do they have any provisions like, say, Formula One racing and stuff like that, where the gear is inspected to make sure it's within whatever, specifications that are provided, so nobody's got any advantages, things like that. And then there's also the business of, okay, there's referees. What are they looking for? What are they refereeing?
Right. Well, there are preceding the event, and of course, well in advance of the event, the rules of the competition are distributed between the competitors as well as the referee. And the competitors get a briefing just before the event after they've read the rules, and they're cautioned on various things. The referee sits in on that too. The referee has a separate document that highlights things to check. Now, the obvious things are exceeding the power. I mean, you could change bands and inadvertently, go more than 100 watts. Well, they've got watt meters that are standardized. These are things that the WRTC provides, is a standardized watt meter, a light indicator, basically some LEDs. When you're in the green, you're good. When you're up in the red, for more than a couple transmissions, you're exceeding the power, and the referee will tap you on the shoulder and said, back the power off. And they keep a watch on things like that. The referee shows up with a set of headphones that the competitors are providing him an audio port so he can plug in, and he can listen to both operators simultaneously, left ear, right ear kind of thing. When I did it in 2018 in Germany, I mean, it was interesting. I could listen to both stations, and I could be watching their log entries as they're working stations. I didn't find any mistakes or any rules being broken whatsoever. But the occasional power thing, that does happen. It's just happens when you change frequencies and things happen. Not a big deal, and it's usually caught immediately. But yeah, they've got full criteria developed for how do you get disqualified? If you're blatantly running excessive power, in the red constantly, you're not listening to the ref when he tells you to knock it off, whatever it might be. And there's a whole booklet on that for the referee. They can be called out and they can be disqualified. But
Has anybody been disqualified?
I don't believe there ever has been, but that's a great question. I've only been myself seriously in this game since 2014, but my old buddy Doug K1DG, he was the winner in 1990. So I'll go back and ask him if he's got any history. He's also part of the sanctioning committee that participates. So great question. Let me just any DQs in the past. I frankly can't remember. And everybody does, I think, such a great job in the reffing. The referees. The whole combination of selection. You got two competitors from Latvia. The judge, or not the judge, referee for that team might be an American, or it might be a German. Nobody from the same country. No referee is going to be, the same country as the competitor. Again, they're trying to take every precaution they can to avoid any kind of question as to compliance to the rules. So they do a good job on that.
Ed?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, I have a quick question, Mark. So, as an individual, if I make a contact, what do I have to do as far as logging?
Well, you'll submit your log as you would in any IARU contest, and that would be to the ARRL. Send your Cabrillo file in.
Okay.
They've WRTC has actually made arrangements with ARRL to have logs forwarded to them. What the judges have to do in the UK in the 24 hours after the event is they've got to confirm valid QSOs and all of that. And the more logs they can get in their hands in that 24-hour period, the better the quality of the judging. And they do tap into what the ARRL gets. And I know we got like 2,000 or 3,000 logs in the first 24 hours. And that was extremely helpful in, adjudicating, the winners and the medal winners for that. So there's a whole organization in the background running to make sure we get exposed to all of the logs or all of the people's logs that are participating. Even if it's one queue and you submit a N1MM Cabrillo file to ARRL, that will get tagged. or, you'll end up in the review.
So it sounds like the log adjudication is not as, what's the word I'm looking for? Strict or as inclusive as some other contests.
Actually, I would say it's probably the same or better. A guy that helped develop the whole logging system for doing the comparisons and validating logs is the very same guy that we're using to do our log checking. So
Yeah,
we're operating at the same highest level that any other high-end contest would as far as log checking goes. Same software.
What I'm referring to is the fact that you have to have results in 24 hours, whereas I don't think with the IAIU, the deadline for all the log submission is 24 hours. I think it's a couple of days, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yeah,
But
so
you got it.
so in a way, you're saying, okay, ARRL is going to shoot us a data set. That data set is a picture up to that point of when the data set was cut, but it's
Right.
not the totality of the log.
Right. Well, it's hard to extend the event, for the whole, we got to, I don't know what the 100, the rationale is for that, but, I think in history has shown that most people, if we get 2,000 or 3,000 logs, that's enough to determine who a winner is. And if there is any question, I know for a fact that there was some question in 2014 where they contacted the person or the operator in question. Maybe it was a ZS station or some, he was kind of a unique call sign kind of situation. They contacted him within that 24-hour period, and they were able to confirm that, yes, indeed, I talked to these WRTC guys because they're on the verge of throwing out the QSO credit because they didn't think this was a legit thing. I don't know all of the circumstances. I'm not in the judging side of this thing, but just a anecdotal kind of story. But at any rate, they do a hell of a job in trying to, confirm that we've got, the real winner here.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Awesome. Rich?
Yeah, Dave and I and some of the people that do the programs and stuff that do this was coming up. We kind of got together and we're talking, and we're going to make like an individual donation, but we decided to kind of pull it together. So I think we're up to like $75 now. If anybody wants to chip in on that, they can see me after the meeting, and we can go ahead and do that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Dave?
No, that pretty well covers it. But there is one more thing I wanted to point out to Mark. Hey, Carl, wave your hand. All right, Carl, this is, I'm sorry, Mark, this is Carl ND8DX. I mentioned him to you in that last email with a little bit of background information. Carl's been a real spark plug here over the past year or so on getting the club interested more in contesting. He invites people to his station and every major contest that comes up. I just wanted you to be able to put a face with his call sign there.
Okay.
By the way, I did look it up on the qualification standing. Carl, you are for North America number 7, 211th, and for the country overall, 2,890th. That's where you were for 2026.
Yay, Carl.
Hey, Carl.
Hey, what the hell? What can you say? Thanks. Because I was kind of curious about that. And by the way, Mark, it's good to put a face to that because I know you're in the log a lot of times and I've been in yours a lot of times too. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Great to, and we've got a little common thread going. You're helping some of the new people get going with contesting, and I'm doing the same. I've had some father-son teams come in and play different contests, and it's really something to give the new hams an opportunity to sit behind a quality station. I won't say mine's that quality, but a decent enough that you can actually hear to what I say, the bottom of the pileup, You got great receiving capability and a decent transmit signal and decent antennas. So you can really get a good flavor and good sense of what's happening. And it's a great, learning platform. And for you to be doing the same thing, I think that's fantastic.
Well, check your email. I'll fire off an email here a little bit
Okay.
later, and we can get together and chat. But it's a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and it's a give and back thing. You and I both had good Elmers. We had people that were part of our lives and still are part of our lives in my case.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a nice thing to do. And it's a lot of fun to watch these kids too. I call you guys kids. Some of you, if you're listening and you know who you are, I call you kids, but you're really not, but you're still kids. But it's a good time and
Yep.
it's enjoyable. So.
Hey, Carl, on a related note, and I don't know how many people here watch Q5 Ham Radio with Kevin W1DED.
Mm-hmm.
He does podcasts on amateur radio, mostly contest related stuff. I reached out to Kevin back in, I don't know, November, December timeframe, and I asked him if he'd be willing to host me for a multi-episode series on contesting for the beginners. This was kind of generated through comments, some of the people that I've had come through my station, suggesting, Mark, you're sharing a lot of information with me. You really ought to put this somewhere out more in the public view. So after much back and forth and writing and a lot of editing on Kevin's part, because I'm no podcast speaker, we've come up with a series. The first one was released last Thursday at 8:00, and tonight is the second episode. And we're kind of going step by step from the bottom up in terms of getting familiar with contesting, evaluating your own station, some of the tricks of the trade, kind of hints for the new people, just to make it, fun and interesting. So I encourage you to check into that podcast if you've got the time.
Awesome. Appreciate the info, Mark.
You're welcome.
Great. Final call for questions and then no? Awesome.
Okay.
On the podcast.
Oh, the details of the podcast, Mark.
Oh, well, you could Google Q5 Ham Radio, and it's from Kevin W1DED, Delta Echo Delta. And mine, I think the first one was called Introduction. He's got a whole series, I don't know, hundreds of YouTube videos, but it's a YouTube video you'll find. And mine's called, the first one was Introduction. I think the next one is, I can't remember my own titles, Evaluation, I guess. At any rate, or Expectations, something like that. So, at any rate, there's a whole series planned this past Monday. I was up at his studio. His studio is only about an hour's drive from here in New Hampshire. He's over in Maine. And I went over to his studio and we recorded the last 3 episodes. So there may be more to follow depending on the feedback. People are saying, hey, you didn't cover this topic. How about doing that? So, I'm open to doing that. So we'll see where this all leads to. It's kind of an experiment just to see what kind of uptake there is with multiple episodes. Call it binge watching, for the ham contester. Okay. Well, thanks.
Awesome. Appreciate you giving us your time here this evening, Mark. Appreciate the info and I mean, with everything with the WRTC, and we appreciate everything you do for the ham community.
Okay, so I guess we're done. All right. I'll see you later.
Yep.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
All right. Take care, guys. Have a good evening.